Today's guest is a familiar face to many of you in Cleveland, former meteorologist Brad Sussman. Brad has spent many years guiding viewers through sunshine, through storms, becoming a trusted voice in weather forecasting. We're going to talk about Brad's journey, memorable moments on the air, and what he sees for the future of meteorology.
Highways of love. What's it gonna be? Are you gonna stay? Are you gonna go? Highways of love.
It is so good to see you, Brad.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be here.
Oh my gosh. The first thing that came to my mind, and in this minute, I'm thinking of it, the corner office
Yep.
at Channel 5.
The weather office.
Correct, which was like a closet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was so little. And you and Don Webster would cram me in there and be so kind to me. And I mean, I was loud. I was me. I was excited. I was,
Yeah.
and I was so thrilled to be doing an internship in my hometown and doing what I want to do.
One thing, and you and I were texting back and forth over the weekend when you came up with this idea to have me on, which I appreciate very much. I said, the only way I agree to do this is if I get to brag on you and tell the story of how you and I came to know each other. And that was way back when you were a senior in college.
Correct.
And you...
First semester.
Yeah, you went to interview our general manager, Gary Robinson, who was on the board of the communications department at John Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out giving school talks that afternoon, so I came in probably about 4 o'clock. But in the time you interviewed Gary Robinson, he said, there's somebody else you should interview. And he called down to Don Webster and said, will you interview this young lady from John Carroll? Well, let's stop there and go back to when I started at Channel 5, 1993. I'm with Don, working with him, putting his maps together during the day, and then he'd do the 5 and 6 o'clock show.
Those were the good old days.
Yeah, good old days, right?
3-hour dinner.
We'll talk about that too. But
that's when I made my tape.
Oh yeah, the stories I've got. Yeah, so I'd always say to Don, I said, we should get an intern. Oh, I don't want an intern. They're stumbling all over him, crotchety guy. So Hollie has her interview with Gary Robinson, our general manager. Then she has an interview with Don Webster. And I walk into the office about 4 o'clock, and Don comes up to me, puts both hands on my shoulder and says, have we ever thought about having an intern? I said, why? Oh, this great young lady came in today. She's from John Carroll. Hollie's her name. I think we should have her as an intern. There you go. That's how it started.
That's how that started.
And so Hollie would come in and hang around with Don and I. But the main time you'd be here was on the weekends with me because I was doing weekend weather at the time.
Yeah.
And that gave us a lot of time to work together. You would put my maps together. I mean, it took you no time to learn the weather computer. We'd look at the forecast stuff together. You'd put together the maps. I'd do the show at 6 o'clock. And then I'd go out and get dinner for us, go to Li Wah, our favorite Chinese place.
Right.
And so the first day I said, you really need to practice in front of the chroma key, the green wall. And I set up the show that I had. And I said, just go ahead and walk through it a number of times. Well, I go get dinner. So it's a half hour. I come back. And in the newsroom, there's this whole crew there standing in front of the television looking at it. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, we're watching Hollie. And one of the guys, the old grizzled veteran.
I don't know that I know this part.
Yeah, you don't know this part. It's the old grizzled veteran of our newsroom turns around and looks at me and he says, she's better than most of the people in Cleveland.
Oh my God.
And so I'm watching this and I call up to the control room and said, could you roll tape on this? And so they rolled tape on.
Goosebumps. I don't know this part of the story.
You don't know this part of the story.
Well, I mean, gosh, you waited a long time to tell it.
But you know the outcome.
I do.
Yeah. So what happened is I got this tape together and we picked one of the ones that was perfect. All of them were great. And the next day that I was into the office was a Tuesday. And Jim LeMay was our news director.
I remember him.
Great news director, wonderful guy.
He had a baseball bat.
He had a baseball bat, yeah, all the time. And he was a character. Oh, the LeMay stories, we could go for hours.
Yeah.
So I walked in. I said, "Hey, boss, you got a couple of minutes?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "I want you to see this tape." Popped it in. He's watching. He watched it for about 30 seconds. He says, "Where is Hollie right now?" I said, "I think she's in class, but I'll find out." So I called you, and you happened to be home, and I said, "Jim LeMay wants to see you." And first thing Hollie said is, "Am I in trouble?" I'm like, it turned out that Jim LeMay had just gotten off the phone with the news director in Toledo. And this news director was asking around if anybody knew somebody because they had a weekend weather position open. And so I said to LeMay, "What do you need her for?" He says, "I think I've got a job for her." So I call you and tell you to come down here. And I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but I know he gave you kind of a what for of what's going to happen in this industry and how women are treated. Mm-hmm. Because you came out of that office nearly in tears. Mm-hmm. Is that true? Because he was kind of upfront and very, very forward about.
It was at that moment that because I was only in communications at John Carroll, as you know. I think you know that.
Yep.
And it was in that defining moment that I said, I am going to become a meteorologist too.
Absolutely.
Because I will not be thought of as a weather bunny or any such thing. And so that's when of Mississippi State's program.
Yeah.
So
went through it myself.
Yeah.
So I remember also.
And he's kind of abrupt.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Yeah, this Jim.
And I mean, I was what? How old was I? Gosh, maybe I don't know if I was even 21 yet. Yeah.
Wet behind the ears.
Right.
And so I remember the one thing, you went to all your professors and said, here it is. It's not even, I don't think it was the second semester yet.
It was just about to begin.
Yeah. So you had to go to your professors and say, "Hey, I'm going to need a little leeway here because I just got a job."
What I heard was, you are excused. You got a job in the profession you are studying. Congratulations. Come back and graduate.
Wow. That is, so I left.
And
that's a testament to you. Your talents, your, natural ability on camera, which you've always had.
Thank
Obviously,
you.
doing that one tape and being able to do that.
I kind of forgot about the fact that was just one tape.
Yeah.
I wasn't going in there night after night doing that.
You were so natural at it.
Thank you.
And it's just that's naturally your ability. You have great communication skills in the whole bit. So
that's really nice.
Part of it. And good camera presence. And
thank you.
The whole bit. What's really funny is when she would be in the office with Don and I during the week, I had people from departments I had never seen before sticking their head in the door to look at the pretty intern. What's the weather going to be like this weekend? It's like every guy in the place knew when Hollie was coming in because they, such an attractive young lady and still are.
You're so nice. This is just nice.
I tell you.
This is really nice. And it was a wonderful way to get into the business. And I am pretty sure I shared this with you and Don, but I had come from a family that resisted it because, as you know, my family is in carpentry and owns Strano Construction, and my grandfather was alive at the time. And of course, they think much differently about it now, but they thought I was a little bit out of my mind, that I was going to go to college and be on TV. And then it happened.
Question, how long were you in Toledo?
4 years.
And then you went to
North Carolina. 4 years there.
4 years in North Carolina, and then to
home.
Cleveland.
9/11 happened.
Right.
And I was home the following March. That for me was like a pivotal moment of I want to go home.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I've worked all over the country because that's what happens in this business.
Yeah.
And so I went to school at University of Illinois and worked in radio right after college, and did radio for 4 years there and took any kind of TV job I could. Now I had a minor in atmospheric science and knew I wanted to do TV weather, and just tried to get on camera anytime I could. Well, I actually would get chances to practice doing the weather because my brother is a meteorologist as well. Yeah. He was exiled to Pittsburgh for 2 years until a guy retired in San Francisco. And he took the job there and was 15 years in San Francisco.
That's awesome.
And so whenever I'd go to visit him, I'd do a tape, because I had an opportunity to do it.
Why not?
So the one thing, and this is how I got my first job in TV. I had this tape out there, and all these news directors talk to each other. Hence the reason you got the job in Toledo, because this guy called Jim LeMay said, "Hey, do you know anybody?" Well, I happen to be
So much for that thermodynamics class I took.
golly.
Sorry. Just had to say it.
Still get headaches from that.
I know.
So my brother's old news director in Reno got a call from a guy in Amarillo, Texas. And he said, "Hey, do you know anybody?" He goes, "As a matter of fact, I do. Let me get you his number." And so the next thing I know, telephones are going long before, cell phones or anything like that. The phone rings, you pick it up. And
Yeah.
this guy from John from McKissick from Amarillo, the news director there, says, "Hey, we got an opening. I hear great things about you. Can you send me a tape?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he gave me their FedEx number. I got him a tape, and he calls me the next day. He said, "Listen, I'm going to be in Dallas for the news director RTNDA meeting. Can you meet me there? And we can talk." And so I fly into Dallas, had lunch and the whole bit, and tells me all about the stations. #1 station, highest rated ABC station in the United States, owned by a guy by the name of Stanley Marsh III. And it just built this new station. And he said, "So what do you think?" I said, "What do you mean, what do I think?" And he said, do you want to, come to work?" And I'm like, just so I had this straight in my head, "John, could you say, Brad, will you come work for us at Channel 7? And he said that. And I'm like, "Absolutely."
Aw, yeah.
So
Those first moments when it happens you're going to never forget that. Just like I'm not going to ever forget Toledo.
Well, I was in radio for 4 years, and I'm watching all my friends who graduated with degrees like in accounting and ag sciences and stuff, and they're making tons of money. I'm making squat as a disc jockey.
Yeah, I think I was making $16,000 a year my first year at Toledo. I mean, that's not like this is, but it was
Right.
It was right in there.
Now you're starting out.
My curtain was my sleeping bag. I'll never forget I had an Oreo sleeping bag as my curtain. And I survived on stovetop stuffing and ice cream. That's what I ate for dinner every night. I'm sure that was really great for my health.
Yeah.
But it was cheap.
Absolutely. You got by with what you could.
You just did what you had to do to get into the business. But then it goes really fast.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
Once you're in it. Like once you're in it, then it's like a rocket.
Yeah. I had been frustrated that I hadn't been able to get higher up in the business and kind of stuck in Champaign. I was doing great. I managed a bar at night, and I did the afternoon shifts, so I didn't have to get up till 11 o'clock in the morning. But one time I went home, and I was talking to my mom and dad, and I had actually worked for Miller Brewing Company my senior year of college as a campus representative. I sold beer to fraternities, very much akin to giving candy to babies, But they offered me a position with Miller. Now, my dad was in the liquor business, and I came and I said, they offered me this job. My dad says, "Let me tell you a story." He said, "Before I married your mother," he was married before that, and it's kind of an arranged marriage. And he said, "I was in show business, and I knew that." And he was a stand-up comedian, early days of television, did some films, radio, the whole bit, in Los Angeles. That's where I was born. And he said, "My greatest regret is not staying with that." He said, "My first wife's family didn't think that was a noble profession. So they got him into the liquor business."
Oh my gosh. I have to say this about you before we move on. You taught me, there's something to be said. Of course you learn in college and you study the hard
theory
things.
Yeah.
Yes, you do. And it's not easy. And you know that as well as I do to become a meteorologist. But I learned more, and this is just how it is. I learned more from you than I did from a textbook. I mean,
I appreciate that.
No, but I really believe that sometimes that really is how it is.
Yeah. That's so true. When you get your hands on it.
When you get your hands on it. I mean, you taught me how to make a forecast. You taught me, all the things. You taught me weather models, and you showed me, and we're not talking like Cindy Crawford was walking in the weather center, although you wouldn't have minded, I'm sure. But, it's just, I learned so much from you and Don, for that matter, and I got to see how each of you did your routine, and that stuck with me.
Yeah, and Don, because he'd been here so long, I
Right.
mean, 25, 26 years,
Yeah.
you know, he understand the weather patterns. I can understand everything about the weather. When you get to Cleveland, it's a
It's
different
a whole
animal.
different beast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I feel bad for people that are forecasting in this market that are not from here because it's really, I almost feel like it's the kind of place that you need to be from here
Yeah.
to understand.
Oh, I've lived in a lot of different cities. You know, I lived Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Champaign, Illinois, Amarillo, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida, and here.
Yeah.
And the last 4 cities I forecasted the weather there. And everybody would always joke, if you don't like the weather, wait around 15 minutes, it'll change.
Right.
Cleveland's the only town where that is true.
I know it's true.
You can
Yeah.
go from being 70 degrees to suddenly being 50, just a north wind change
Yeah.
on an April day.
Right.
And it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then
It confuses
And then
the
the snow.
heck out of people that are not from here that try to nail a forecast, and you can talk to them till you're blue in the face. Like
Cooler
if
near
you're with
the lake.
someone that's like from, Tucson, that got hired, and they're all like, "Hey, I studied this. I know what I'm doing," and then that lake breeze just kills their forecast. But they just didn't want to, maybe listen to your advice at the time.
And that's the thing. I was so blessed to work with Don for so many years.
Yeah.
And just to know those little idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
And, whew,
There's
it's
a
like,
lot of
wow.
them.
Oh,
There's
no
a lot
kid.
of them.
Around here, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
a ton of them.
Same thing with my first boss in TV, Len Slesick in Amarillo. He had been there 26 years. And so, he and I would, he'd be the one to tell me the little idiosyncrasies of how Amarillo's weather works.
Yeah,
You could
I
be, we'd get 2 snowfalls a year, and they'd be 8 to 10 inches each.
And they would close the town down.
Pretty much close the town down, but 2 days later, the snow would be gone because it would be 65 degrees. Because you'd get a west wind coming off the Rockies, and it'd warm you up.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think what I loved about you and Dawn, and still do, is that you were relatable. And I think you know this about me. I'm not up there to, I was never up there to spit out really scientific words to impress. And we can both say that we can do that. We are meteorologists by nature.
We can talk for hours about the quasi-biennial oscillation, but,
I mean,
who needs to know that? They want to
mean,
know if they need a jacket tomorrow.
I think you might change the channel if you heard me say that. Like, who needs to know it? And
Right.
so that's what I really appreciated about your approach. And I think that there are some that, go that other way to make it look like, and that was something that did not appeal to my presentation ever.
Well, that's the nature of your personality. You're very
Yeah.
personable, and it showed on camera. And that's the same person who is off camera. You're the same on and off camera. And that's, for a lot of people, that's really hard to do because
Yeah.
they're putting up a different persona on camera. You've met him before. You've seen him before.
Oh, I sure have.
It's,
One day I'll have that episode.
wow, no kidding. Yeah,
Will you be on it? We could just name names. No, we could do like what is that, charades? Who am I? Who am I? Okay. I'm not even going to do any gesture, but yes, we could absolutely do a whole episode just about that.
yeah. And, it's kind of interesting to see.
There's not a lot of real ones. Let's just put it that way. I don't know if
Good-
you don't
very-
have to agree with
Very
me.
good way to put it.
There's not a lot of real
There's
ones.
some people that are on TV because they want to be on TV.
It's a privilege.
Yeah.
To go into people's homes, to be a part of their life. And I can't stand for the life of me people that are in this business that have that attitude like, oh, I can't go to the grocery store without someone. To me, that like makes my day.
I know, absolutely. I nowadays, since I've really been out of TV since 2008, which, by the way, I think was the last time you and I actually met each other, saw each other in person.
Yeah.
And
We text a lot.
yeah,
we,
absolutely.
We talk on the radio.
Talk on the radio.
Yeah.
But, I used to give a lot of school talks, I said, and probably 10,000 over the 10 years I was at Channel 5. So a lot of these people have grown up, and I'll run into them, and they're the manager of the grocery store.
Oh, and you spoke at their school?
You talked to my sixth grade class.
Aw.
So
But that's really
God
sweet.
bless you. That's great.
That is really sweet.
One of the funnier stories I have along those lines is one of the carriers that I was trying to get signed on with. I met the guy for the first time, and we sat down and had lunch, and Next time we met, he goes, I didn't want to tell you this the first time around. I said, what's that? He goes, you and I have met before. I said, really? He goes, yeah, you spoke to my 6th grade class at AI Root Middle School in Medina. So
It's hard to remember all the things.
we're at a sales conference where all the agents are in this room, and I happen to get an award. And as I'm walking up, he said he's standing up there, and he's now the vice president of the region. And he said, Brad, can I tell the story? And I'm like, go ahead. And he said, I don't know if any of you know this, Brad used to be a TV weatherman. And a bunch of people are like, that's where I know that name. And so he tells the story.
Yeah.
He came to speak to my 6th grade class.
Aw, and that has to make you feel really great.
It does.
Yes.
Makes me feel old, but yeah, great.
No, it's just a number. It's just a number.
It is. And then I'll get clients who, said, I remember you from TV. And I said, I appreciate your memory.
Yeah.
That was a while ago, but thank you
Oh
very
my
much.
gosh. And you are you're just funny about it, but you look great and you are great. And
Well, thank
you're
you.
like a Spitfire.
Well,
I've always said that about you, Spitfire.
I, got past the whole idea of my hair going gray.
I like it.
And thank you very much. Blessed that, when
Men look distinguished, we look old.
when awesome Mrs. Sussman and I got married back in 2003, I had my hip replaced earlier that year.
I remember that.
And I buzzed my hair just because I didn't want to deal with hair issues in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so I kind of liked it. And I had my hip replaced in July. We were getting married in November. So August rolls around and I just came back from a haircut. And awesome Mrs. Sussman says to me, can I ask you a favor? I said, what's that? She goes, can you grow your hair out? I said, yeah, why? She goes, because you have really nice hair, number one. And you have hair, which a lot of guys your age don't have.
That's really cute.
So I grew my hair out and have had it, grown
That's
it out
really
ever
cute.
since. Yeah.
And I want to talk about some hard things right now. I
Absolutely.
have to go here with you.
Okay.
How did you feel after the accident?
That you were very lucky to be alive. And we all have demons. And that it's something you would have to work out yourself. I was not happy about it. I mean, that's, what can you say? People make mistakes. And it's not me that should judge them. And I, felt bad for you. I know I texted you afterwards.
You did.
And yeah, I just so glad you got help and figured it out. I'm gritting my teeth here
No, say it.
because
This is abruptly authentic. Say it.
what made me more mad than anything else is the comments from people on social media.
Talk about that.
I mean,
No, truly.
thank heavens social media wasn't around. I mainly got out of TV 2004, then 2008. So I thankfully missed the bulk of the social media.
No, but I want you to go there and talk about
But
it.
there are people that, suddenly come on. And this goes back to when you were on TV and all the women that I knew that were on TV. We first got email in 1996 at Channel 5. And I remember these emails that I would see that Lee Jordan and several of the other anchors, Tanya, Lorna, they'd get from viewers, women primarily. Didn't you wear that suit 2 weeks ago? Catty stuff like that. Now, I got to tell you, as a guy, I had a black suit and a navy suit and a sport coat and slacks. White shirts. Key is, I had 200 ties. So I'd wear a different tie every day. Nobody said a thing about that.
Right.
Isn't that the same suit you wore Wednesday? Nobody said that.
Right.
Nobody was that catty. But I mean, it's magnified 10 times now because I was looking at the comments, the video and the whole bit and people saying all this just terrible stuff. And it's like, you don't know this person. How could you say something like that? But I guess that's just the nature of people hiding behind a keyboard. It drives me crazy. And, I was in no place to jump up and defend. But it drove me absolutely crazy. I can't even imagine what it was like for you.
That's fair. I look back at it now and I have moments where I think, I don't know how I got through that, but I do know how I got through that because I worked really, really hard.
Obviously.
I wanted to drop an F-bomb, but I'm trying not to. I mean, we can on this show because it's abruptly authentic, but I worked really hard. I put myself through rigorous therapy.
Did you go through a program?
No, is the easy answer to that question. I did.
So I know some people that do it like you do, others that go through the 12 steps, which
that would not have,
God bless them.
That would not have worked for me.
I was going to say whatever works.
Yes, and that is my whole mission, and that's the reason I'm doing what I am. It's a lot of the reason why, because to me, this is more than just recovery. It's life and living your best life. And yes, it's many things. It's health, it's wellness. It's, because I didn't know where I was going to land after that, meaning I didn't know where I would be. And I ended up in a place that was where God meant me to be.
Absolutely.
To fix myself. And up until that point, I never had that place. And so I finally landed, I'm going to say home.
Yeah.
With a team that continues to help me. I mean, obviously, I'm not in therapy anymore. I've transitioned. I have a life coach. But I worked hard. It took me 3 months to watch the YouTube video.
Wow. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And I didn't look at comments for a long, long time. And I'm strong enough, to do all that now. But I just felt like I had to bring it up to you. I mean, I'm going to say it to you because I feel like I'm seeing you in person. I'm so sorry if I in any way put you in a position where you had to maybe feel the need to defend me, because my actions are my actions. But I didn't know what I was doing. That is not an excuse.
Right.
I was obviously shit-faced and not in a good place in life when
I
that
can tell you'd had
happened.
some practice at that.
Yeah, yeah. But it's still my fault. I'm the one. I got in the car, I got in the car. And I'm not going to ever, I'm never going to say, well, if this would have happened or if so-and-so could have done this,
good for
I
you.
got in the car.
So we've had so many friends, people in the business that have gotten into situations like that, DUIs and whatever.
Yeah.
If the awesome Mrs. Sussman, and by the way,
the awesome
the
Mrs.
reason I use that is when she and I first met, I was on television. Okay. So she signed on to the whole television gig.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm not in television anymore. I'm in radio. And for the longest time I did talk radio, conservative talk radio. And I didn't know what her coworkers would think. I wouldn't know, didn't know if they maybe, leaned left, would be offended by what I do. So I take her name out of the picture because she's just the awesome Miss Sussman. She doesn't need to have the saddle of me doing what it is. And she is awesome. I think she kind of likes me a little bit.
I mean,
so
she has good reason to. Well, thank you for letting me do that because it feels really good to say it. And I know I've said it to you over text, and I know we've had conversations, and I know that you're a supporter, but I don't feel like something. This is the weird statement that I always feel is weird, is that I do believe, as horrible as that was, and all the things that could have happened. If that didn't happen to me, Brad, I don't know that I would be where I am. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense.
I believe it was divine intervention in putting me on a path that is really, truly meant to be me.
Well, and
I've never felt better.
God has a path for all of us, and it's just you have to accept when that is and where it's going. I mean, I'd have to say I've never been more spiritual in my life. I go to church with the family. We go to St. Columkill Church.
Yeah.
Here's a Jewish kid sitting in church.
I was just going to say that. Didn't you put up a Christmas tree and go to church all the time?
No, I never went to temple. I was never raised in Judaism.
I just remember you.
Yeah. We talk about that.
Yeah.
But what happened is, and it's kind of an interesting story, the mother in a Jewish family is the one responsible for teaching Judaism to the kids. My dad, when he was born, my dad was 3 years old when his younger brother was born. His mother died during childbirth. Now, his dad was an entrepreneur and would travel all around. So he was raised by his two older sisters. Well, they only had a little bit of Judaism taught to them.
Yeah.
And so they kind of just factored in what their friends did.
Right.
And in East St. Louis, Illinois, a lot of them were Catholic and whatnot. So they put up a Christmas tree and hide it in the closet when Grandpa would come home. And so my dad never, never bar mitzvah or anything like that. I never was. I am Jewish. That's my race.
Yeah, I knew that.
But, and the last name obviously is pretty Jewish. And my mother-in-law, it's really funny. She's hilarious. She's like, yes, there's my Jewish son-in-law, dutifully at church with the family. So, it's interesting because, as active in the church as we are, my son had his confirmation the other day, and he sang the whole Mass.
Aw.
Yeah, he's got a great voice. We take him to vocal lessons and all that stuff. We have a camper out at Sandusky at the KOA park next to Cedar Point.
Okay.
That's our summer, and they had a karaoke party last year, and Calvin got up to sing. It's my son, and he starts singing. My jaw hit the floor.
Aw.
I'd never heard him sing.
Aw.
He's got.
Oh, gosh. Don't make me cry.
But he's just amazingly talented.
Aren't our kids awesome?
Oh my God.
I think something like this too for me, to watch two kids go through what they did with me. Think about
Exactly.
like what you're saying now.
Wow. What everybody's talking
And I
about.
think one of the hardest things for me, and I'm such an ugly crier, one of the hardest things for me was thinking of what they had to think watching the YouTube video.
Oh, I can imagine.
And maybe having like a moment of like, what if she died? Like the night when they didn't know where I was.
Oh, God.
And I just put myself in that place, and you still go there, I don't know that there'll ever be a day that I don't. And I love them so much. And they're right there by my side, and they're so proud.
Good.
And
They
it's
should be.
beautiful. And so I have decided that, I'm going to turn this into something that's pretty f***ing awesome.
Good. And you have.
Yes.
What's really interesting is I know that in your days of television, you had a lot of stuff, other things going on in the background.
Yes.
Kind of an entrepreneur. I wasn't. I was a one-trick pony.
I was like, like what's the cartoon? Like I was like spinning dishes, and
Right.
like this leg was spinning something.
And so
I'm a workaholic.
when I first got out of TV, that's all I knew.
Oh.
I didn't really have anything else. And so it took me some years of trying different things and, from running a nonprofit to fill-in on talk radio. I filled in on talk radio stations all over the country for 2 years.
You have a great voice.
Thank you very much.
You just do. Like when I listen to
tribute
you.
my dad,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would do conservative talk all over the country for
That's cool.
Clear Channel iHeart stations, and I would do it either from my house or from a remote station, TAM usually.
Yeah.
And it was kind of surreal. I'd fill in for a week or I'd fill in for 3 months if somebody was going to be out or they're looking for somebody.
It could be a long time.
It was great. I
Yeah.
loved it. Back when I worked in Jacksonville, Florida, I was there right after during Hurricane Andrew, covered Hurricane Andrew.
Blew out the National Weather Service.
Oh, man, that was a storm. But then afterwards, literally the month after that storm hit, every insurance company in the state of Florida petitioned to leave. And so the governor got together and put a task force and said, we've got to figure out how we can mitigate the risks for all these insurance companies. So I went and covered, because we were a small station that I worked for, I went and would cover the meetings in Tallahassee in the morning and then go back and do the weather at night, put together a story.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn about insurance on the fly. And after I was done with it, I said, this TV thing doesn't work out. Maybe I'd like to try insurance. And so, it got to the point, awesome, Mrs. Sussman and I were talking. I said, I think I just want to take an entry-level job in the insurance business to see if I like it. And then if that works out, I'll try and start my own agency. And so I did. I went to work with a Columbus-based insurance company. I worked for their corporate office as a customer service rep. And in an office, they had an Independence. And I know they looked kind of sideways at me when I walked in, because here's a guy who's in his 50s, wanting to take an entry-level job. And I told him what was going on. And
It's never too late.
What's funny is one of the guys who was interviewing me, he said, yeah, I listen to you all the time when you fill in for Quinn and Rose, which is a talk show out of Pittsburgh. I would fill in all the time. Yeah, small world.
I love that you told this story, because that was your pivot.
Yeah.
My pivot came after I was terminated. And I thought, I'm still going to be on TV.
Good for you.
I started my own company. And I started my own show. And I'm not going to let a horrific mistake define the rest of my life.
That, you know what? That's a great lesson for anybody out there. You don't have to grovel and
so I
be
think what I'm
mad.
trying to say is that you are capable of anything if you're willing to put the work into it. And I believe if you learn from whatever that is that happens in your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like I'm
total
always going to
sense.
have remorse.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to crawl in a hole now. In fact, I think that if it didn't happen, I might be in a hole.
You would have continued on that path and something
Who knows?
something worse would have happened.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But now, we can do whatever we put our minds to is the truth. And I hope that I inspire others to realize that on whatever journey they're on. What? What?
When you dropped the F-bomb earlier.
Yeah.
I being
That reminds you of the Weather Center office again?
Okay. I was raised in radio to, if there's ever a microphone in the room, you don't use any four-letter words. Because how many friends have you and I had, especially weather people, who wore the lavalier microphone that was a remote pack,
Oh, yeah. You just keep it on because
and
you
kept
forget.
it on all the time, and they're out in the hallway telling a filthy joke to somebody, and suddenly somebody pots up their mic and they hear this guy,
Right.
using all sorts of, and they end up getting fired. So that's always my rule that, with the microphone in the room, I don't say anything. And when you said that, I almost started
It's a lot
laughing.
on-
It's like,
It's a lot on this show.
well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes there's I feel like a need to just say some words.
Well, and it's interesting because I can't remember who I was talking to, but I used a four-letter word, and they looked at me like, I don't think I've ever heard you swear before. And I said, I think it's just the nature of how I was,
Yeah.
because of being around microphones all the time.
Right? PTSD.
Exactly.
You see a microphone. I have a thing where I can't do 3, 2, 1 anymore. I use ABC.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Trauma.
And I do my forecast I still do the weather for a station and radio station in
I
Anchorage,
guess I could do
Alaska.
XYZ sometimes too, to change it up.
I still did 3 too. It's just
Yeah, right.
from the old
And if
production
I start
days.
doing that, I get this reaction right away where I'm like, AB. I just want to say thank you because I feel like if it wasn't for you and God putting you in my life, who knows, right?
Well,
It all started with you.
it all happens for a purpose, and I'm just very blessed to have you as an intern and a friend. Had so much fun. We played hard, but we worked hard,
Yeah.
and so we keep up our certifications, learn new stuff.
Yeah. Keep up with all the computers,
oh.
technology constantly changing, all those things.
It's amazing how far it's come now.
yeah, it really is.
I look back in Amarillo when we had, we'd put magnets up on a board, and then we got the weather computer, and
Magnets.
way back when.
I know. I kind of
And
want to bring that back.
I had somebody.
It might have to happen on Abruptly Authentic.
I remember it was probably towards the end of my TV career. I was at one of the conferences, and they're like, "Wouldn't it be great if we had something we could write on the board?" I'm like, "Oh my God, we've gone full circle."
Yeah, because everyone wants, I think everyone is craving simplicity and sort of the way it was in a society that's in fast motion.
Well, and the other thing is you have to, and especially nowadays with TV graphics and stuff, and I honestly, other than watching you in the morning on Channel 3, when I'm at WTAM.
When you used to.
When you were used to be at Channel 3. I don't watch local TV anymore. I
don't either.
I watch very little TV.
I think this is where it's at.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not you're not doing the 3-hour Joe Rogan podcast, but heck, this is so.
No, but this is where everyone goes to. And
Right.
I'm not just saying me, I'm saying in general.
Yeah.
We are watching things that
Absolutely.
are streamed. We are, yes, correct.
And the great thing about this podcast and most podcasts, you can listen and you can watch.
Yeah, thank you.
That is.
I wanted that to be an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because sometimes I think it's fun to watch. And if you're maybe on a, run
at night
and
when
you
I'm
just want to listen,
when I'm out smoking a cigar, I can listen.
there you go. Yeah.
I'm one of these people, unlike the awesome Mrs. Sussman and a couple of my kids. I'm a very oral. I listen. That's how I learn.
Yeah.
And other people visual. And for me, it's always been listening.
Right.
Is the best way I learn. So that's why.
Well, I've learned so much from you through my life. So thank you.
Thank you for being in mine, and just that divine interdiction that brought you into, that weather office that day.
Yeah. I mean, for real.
Don Webster. Have we ever thought about having an intern? Those days, and I always remembered it back, he's since passed, but we would do lunch, every couple of months.
Yeah.
And I'd always remind him of that. How's Hollie doing? I watch, and then he'd watch you all the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for you.
Good seeing you. And then you for you. And I'm so glad you're here. And thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Will you come again one day?
Absolutely.
All right.
Highways of love. What's it gonna be?
Don't mind me. I'm just going to get another staple. It's now starting because I said something great about you.
Wow. That says something about the smarts in the family.
Well, I mean, you're welcome, Jessica and Brady.